ultimately decide, we'll do background checks on the candidate, and then we'll make an offer. And so for the district, for a teaching position, we follow a pay scale. So Mrs. Gregerson is hired for this position. We look at her years of experience, and we look at her credits and education that go along with that, and then she's placed on that pay scale. So we don't go into a specific negotiation with each individual for those teaching positions. Support staff is very similar to that. Board is not part of the support staff. I'm not typically involved with the hiring of our support staff, but we still do background checks, still do the application process, and going through those. When I came out of education, when Mrs. Gregerson came out of education, started getting into teaching, when we applied for a position, there was probably 50 applicants for those jobs, or maybe 200 if you were in West Fargo, or 500 in West Fargo. By comparison, because of the shortages and the lack of interest in education, that has changed drastically. So when we have a math position, English position, we'll get 4, 5, 6 applicants for those jobs. By comparison, when you're in Oaks, North Dakota, you'll be fortunate if you get 1 applicant. And so a lot of schools in this area have hired individuals from the Philippines, international individuals, because again, the shortages are real, and they're being felt over across the state of North Dakota. In my 16 years as administrator, I've probably had to be involved with no less than 20 dismissals, firing of positions. It's not easy. It's never easy when you sit down. You have to sit across from an individual and explain to them the reasons why that we feel like they're not the fit in our school district. But I feel like being real and upfront and honest and respectful in the process is important. And sometimes it's not an easy decision. And sometimes there's factors outside of just simply a violation of policy that goes along with that as well. Sometimes it relates to finances. We don't have the financial means to be able to keep you on staff, and so we have to move on. Question?
What does a normal day look like for you?
No, I'm far from normal. Typically I try to get there at 7:30 on a typical day, and so I like to jump into emails first to see what communications maybe I had received from the afternoon the night before, and try to communicate those things out. Typically district communications, whether it's our staff or parents, I try to complete those in the morning. I feel like just more people are receptive for the same reasons that I said. People are checking their emails or communications right away. For me, again, the challenge of the last couple of years has been getting out and getting into the schools. And you guys have probably noticed that maybe I'm not around as much as I should, and so balancing all those things. But I try to prioritize getting out, having conversations with students, with our staff members, so that I understand what's going on. And so then just meetings ranging from our board meetings to committee meetings to state meetings, functions such as that. And so any given day there could be 3, 4 type of meetings that are half an hour to hour long. And then it's just continuing, documentation, paperwork preparations, preparing for things that would be upcoming. And so I would say that's kind of typical day, ending anywhere from 5 o'clock to, if there's a board meeting that night, 9 o'clock at night. And so, just different times of the year, different weeks. A week could be 50 hours long, a week could be 70 hours long. And so it just changes from day to day, week to week, and kind of month to month.
Okay, mine's just for Mr. Johnson. Do you ever sit in and supervise classrooms like how Mrs. Brandt and Mr. Larson do?
No, I don't. And so I don't evaluate teachers. I like to get out into a classroom. I like to be engaged as much as possible. I probably should do more of that, is seeing classrooms in session and things happening. So my job is to evaluate our principals. And so by doing that, I feel like I have to get out and I have to see them interacting to know what's going on, to understand what is that's being a priority at the Valley City High School, junior high, senior high, how they're performing, leading the teachers in our schools as well. So I like to get in the classrooms. Typically I'm not there as you see your principals, evaluating, sitting through a lesson.
How do you effectively and calmly handle situations with like angry people, like parents or teachers?
We never do. We never have that, we never, you know, I wish. You know, it usually, I guess, you know, the chain of command, and that stuff is always, you know, first off, where we want people to start. So if it is something that is, say a parent is upset about how they're, you know, something academically or in the classroom, we want them to start with the teacher if there's issues, and we hope that the teacher is in conversation with their building administrator, about this and letting them know. If you can't get it worked out with the teacher, then you can go to the building administrator. Hopefully you can work it out there, and then comes to Josh, and lo and behold, if it doesn't come, you know, if things don't get worked out, then they are referred to me. You know, and you treat people with respect. That's the main thing, and you listen. If you hear them out, a lot of times that's all people, when people are angry about something, that's all that they want, is they just want to be heard. So if you just calmly listen to them and say, okay, yep, I understand, but we do have a policy that this is what we have to do, and you explain to them why, and that stuff. It usually does get taken care of. Sometimes people, you know, you just end up leaving a conversation with the understanding to just disagree, and stuff, but if you talk to people respectfully and calmly, and hear them out, actually listen, it usually takes care of itself.
I think he answered it perfectly, just how I would have answered it as well, is that, I think people want to be heard. They have a frustration, they're upset about something, and they were expressing that. So if I answer the phone and somebody says, did Mrs. Gregerson yelled at my kid in class? And if I say, no, she didn't, I know Mrs. Gregerson, she wouldn't do that. All that's going to do is ignite the situation. And so oftentimes what I'll do if I receive that call, and again, if they've already talked to a principal, I'll listen to them, hear them, and let them know that I will get more information, and that I'll give them a call back. And so they want to know the why, they have some questions, and so I'll hear them, listen to that, and let them know that I'll give them a call back, and then I'll go and find out the information and find out why Mrs. Gregerson chose to yell at Coy, and, you know, was he sleeping, was he misbehaving, whatever else the reason was. And so, you know, again, as Ryan said, we may not always agree to everything, but typically, I would say 90% of the time, that will resolve most situations. The 10% of the time where we don't agree on something, that's where it becomes complicated and challenging. And I don't care if you're a teacher, I don't care if you're a principal, superintendent, board member, there are gonna be those situations. And it seems like in the last 5 years, maybe even 2 years post-COVID, people's opinions are stronger than they ever have been before. And so there are situations where people aren't satisfied with that. They'll go to the president of the board and they won't be satisfied with that. And so then they'll maybe call the governor's office, or they'll call somebody else. And so again, when I reference, you have to be solid in your convictions, you have to be solid in your values and your beliefs and the policies and the laws that you follow in these positions. And if at the end of the day, you can look yourself in the mirror and say, this is the basis for my decision making, and if you can say and have the reasons why, I think you can sleep well at night, knowing that you're making those decisions for the right reasons.
One of the biggest issues that I see with these type of situations now is social media. You know, so everyone vents everything on social media, and as the board president and board member, sometimes it's really at that stuff, not read through it, especially when I have a wife that loves to hear and say, oh, did you see this? And that type of stuff. But just don't respond. Just walk away, mumble under your breath, and don't respond. That's the best thing you do, because if you open up those conversations, it usually doesn't go well.
You know, my wife and I don't agree on everything, and so we agree and disagree on some things. Ryan and I don't agree on everything, and so there's a mutual respect that we have and appreciation for one another. And at the end of the day, Ryan's the board president, and there's gonna be situations that I'm not going to be in agreement with him, but I respect him and his position that he's in. Question?
Okay, I guess with, you guys both hold pretty high positions, so how do you kind of deal with and manage the stress that comes with everything you do?
I'll refer to him, because I don't have any stress over it, but as long as he takes care of it.
It's a really good question, Coy. You know, we talk about work-life balance and how do we, maintain whatever. I think, I don't care what position you're in, stress is, stress and responsibility, everything else comes along with it. And I think you guys experience that as students as well. You have tests, you have expectations, you have a lot of things that are asked of you. And so I think maintaining perspective and purpose behind what it is and why. And again, just making choices behind why it is and what it is that you do. I don't spend enough time with my family. I hate to say it, but it's a reality. It's just, in this position, the expectations of the job require sometimes long hours and also require tough decisions. And so, I wish that I could be, more engaged, more available, and be able to attend activities and things like that. But at the same point, I see my responsibility in this school is all of you. And at the end of the day is to be able to be present, to be able to be engaged, to be able to make those decisions. And so, I'd like to be able to tell you, I eat well, I exercise, I go to the gym, I meditate, I do yoga. It's not. I drink a lot of Mountain Dew, Coy. I eat candy. I don't eat lunch. I don't manage it well, just to be frank with you. I'm 110% committed to my job and to doing the best I absolutely can do for all of you, to make sure that your experiences here as Highliners at Valley City High School, to make sure our staff members are supported, to try to take things off of their plate, to make their jobs, their lives easier, our principals. Ryan, we've joked, my responsibility is to make sure that stuff doesn't land on their plate. Parents' complaints, issues with staff members, challenges with students. That's my job. My job, if I'm not doing my job, they will have people show up at their meeting, they'll have people calling them, and our lives of our teachers will be more difficult. That's what I feel like is my responsibility in this school district, and I know that there's room for improvement, because the reality is, I look at each individual student and say, how can we get better? How can we help Coy Griebel have a better experience as a student, as an athlete, to be able to be the best version of Coy that he is, and to make sure that you have the skills and the tools and everything you need to be able to extend and go beyond here. And so, I don't do it well, so it's hard to answer that question. My wife, if she was here, would attest to much of that.
Your 6, 11, and 12 on the front we haven't answered. on the back, 13, 14, and 13, 14, 15, and 18 on the back.
4 and 6, you said?
Yeah, 4 and 6.
What are the major changes that we're trying to make in our school?
Well, major changes, I mean, you guys will start seeing it here.
Can I get the following students to the junior high office? Owen Hunt, Jaden Mascarenas Milan, Ian Lindsay, Alexander Russell, Caleb Walker, and Rain Nelson to the junior high office, please.
You guys will start seeing it here probably real soon, right about Christmas break. I'm gonna start, hopefully, start doing some remodeling of the school. I'm sure you've probably heard about, possible parking lot coming in across the street. Hopefully that's gonna be done next year, so, you guys are all leaving, you'll come back in 2 years and hopefully you don't recognize the place. So we're gonna start trying to do some things. You know, last year we were going through and looking at possibly building a new school, there was a lot of excitement about that. And one of the hardest things is with the way schools are funded, you know, we're all tax-based. The taxpayers pay for your education, and the state doesn't allow us to go into debt so far, so I mean, it's kind of a complicated thing to talk about and everything, but we can only do so much, and the cost of building, we're not able to afford to put a new building up, so we're gonna start hopefully here, right around Christmas time with doing some different things and that stuff. And a lot of it is going to be, based around safety. Student safety, teacher safety, everyone that's in the building, trying to make it as safe of an environment as we possibly can.
I think in the elementary is two things academically, in improving reading and math, students' proficiency, and so being able to read at grade level, being able to perform math-wise, it's a foundational part of that. Recognizing that, reading is the building blocks for the academic journey that you guys are all on, and so I think the higher level that our students can read, the easier school becomes, and so two things there, behavior as well. So behavior has become a challenge at all levels, but I think at the elementary level, elementary behavior is part of the challenge. So whether you're going into elementary education or secondary education, that has been a change, and so that's something we're also trying to address. I think at the high school level is the active engagement of our kids. So actively engaged in the classroom, engaged in taking ownership of your learning and choosing your direction, your pathway. And then fitting your schedule in around that. And so it's our responsibility to make sure that we're supporting you in the process. Whether you're going to go the route of college, you're gonna take dual credit courses, whether you're gonna go the two-year route, or you're going to a career-based. And so we wanna make sure, again, support you, give you the resources that you need to be able to choose that, I think is part of our responsibility. From an activity standpoint is again, to try to get our kids engaged and active, and I think there's a lot of positivity that comes when you're participating in activities, clubs, fine arts, whatever else that may be.
Do you have any last minute advice for these guys as they keep deciding what they might wanna do?
We need educators, we need teachers, we need good people that love kids, wanna see the good in kids, wanna make a difference, and because right now we're just not seeing enough of the interest in education, and because I think there's a lot of noise outside that brings fear to, why would I be in education? It's not paying very well, kids, talk back, parents, whatever else. And so I would tell you that if you're interested in education, this is a good place to start. But to get yourself out and to involved, if you haven't had much interaction with kids, whether it's elementary or secondary, to take advantage of those experiences. Talk to Mrs. Govan and volunteer up at Jefferson if your schedule allows, to get involved with an after-school program. But the more you can get out and get involved, the more you'll have an understanding before you hit your field experience in college, whether or not education is the right thing for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there any
You
questions,
guys are-
anything like burning question you wanna ask
That you didn't get to?
that you didn't get to? About education, leadership, what's happening at school here?
Do you get paid with a salary or hourly?
I'm salary.
Okay.
I think I'm compensated extremely well. I'm very appreciative of the compensation of what Valley City provides, and I'm grateful for that. There's a lot of stress along with it as well, and responsibility, but.
Teachers and students, if you missed school picture day, today is the day to get that